What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. I want to talk to you about the hour-long premiere of Justice League Action, which is a new cartoon on Cartoon Network about the Justice League. And this is the first 4 episodes of the Justice League Action cartoon titled Shazam Slam. But if you go online and look for episode titles, you won't find Shazam Slam, but it's the first 4 episodes all crammed into one episode. And the plot of this premiere is that Black Adam takes over the Rock of Eternity temporarily, and he releases 5 monsters onto Earth, and then the Justice League splits off into different groups to fight all of these monsters and defeat them, and then at the end of the episode, they once again have to fight Black Adam. And there are some things about this episode that I really like, and then there's some things about it that I really don't like. Let me talk about some of the things that I really like first. I really like Captain Marvel. I like the way that they present him as, even when he's Captain Marvel, occasionally he acts very childish, and that makes a lot of sense, because sometimes you will see Billy Batson act childish, and then whenever he becomes Captain Marvel, suddenly he's an adult, and he says, golly gee willikers, and holy smokes, and stuff like that, and he basically acts like an adult, with some very cheesy, hokey things from the 1950s as part of his lingo, but he doesn't really act like a kid. And that doesn't really make a lot of sense, because even though he has the wisdom of Solomon, he's still basically Billy Batson, and he should have some of the mannerisms of Billy Batson. And this cartoon actually goes in that direction. There are a couple of instances where he gets really excited about something, like a kid on Christmas, and then he kind of composes himself, he straightens his chest a little bit, and he deepens his voice like he thinks an adult should act, and then he says it again. And I think that's really cool. That's something that's very logical in a direction to take this character. So I really like the way that they played Captain Marvel here. I like a lot of the voice work here. Some of the characters, their voices didn't really work for me, but it's not a big deal, because with this cast being such a huge cast, you're going to see some characters once, and then you may not see them again for another 8 episodes. So if you didn't like, say, for example, Billy Batson's voice, you may not see him for a really long time, so it's not as big of a problem as it might have seemed watching this episode. But I really like the way that they handle Captain Marvel. I like John Constantine. Yes, they do call him John Constantine in this episode, not John Constantine, but I really love John Constantine here. I never in a million years thought that we would see him in an animated anything. I thought that he was hilarious. Batman said that he was hit by an accent exaggeration spell, which made everything that he said about 100 times funnier than if Batman hadn't said that. I thought that was hilarious. I'm still kind of chuckling about that right now. I really like that we get to see lots of characters that you don't usually get to see in these A-list cartoons. We get to see a version of Swamp Thing, which he's another character I never thought we would see in animated form. We get to see Plastic Man, which I didn't really like the way they played Plastic Man, and I'm usually a Plastic Man fan, but I didn't really like the way they played Plastic Man here. But again, it doesn't bother me, because they're probably not going to be using him in every episode, so he's not going to be getting on my nerves a whole lot like he would if he was in every episode. But I really like that we get to see some more C-list-ish characters be part of this version of the Justice League. But there were some things about this that I also did not like. For example, I guess this version of the Justice League, their motto when they go into action is Justice League Action, and that just seemed really stupid and silly to me. Batman says it. The Justice League does not need a motto before they go into action, and if they do, please don't let it be Justice League Action. I know that's the name of the series, but you don't need to shoehorn it into the series. First of all, they don't even need a motto. If they see a bad guy, they can just go fight it. They don't need to see Avengers Assemble or Titans Go or To Me My X-Men. Every superhero team doesn't need that kind of motto, and most of the time those superhero teams who do have that motto, even they don't need their own motto. But please don't make that be a thing in this show. That was really silly and groan-inducing. I really hated that. There were some other minor things, like Martian Manhunter. They tried to make him crack jokes. He's only in about 2 minutes of this episode, and he's really just a Deus Ex Machina to defeat this one particular bad guy, but he cracks like 2 different jokes, and neither one of them are funny at all, which could be funny in the fact that he's not funny, because he's usually the straight man, so if he tries to be funny, and you accent the fact that he's not funny, that could be funny, but they're not doing that. They're trying to make him funny, and he's not funny, but they're not highlighting the fact that he's not funny, if that makes any sense at all. But didn't really like them trying to make Martian Manhunter be a jokey character. There's one point where Superman and Wonder Woman are fighting a demon-possessed parasite, and it takes them like 10 minutes longer than it took me to realize that he was absorbing their powers, and the Justice League should be smarter than that. Yes, I know this is a cartoon aimed at people quite a bit younger than me, but the Justice League should not be complete idiots when they're fighting crime. Besides, just because this show might be aimed at 10 to 11-year-olds doesn't mean that it needs to have the mental faculties of a 10 or 11-year-old. This show should be something that kind of brings the audience up, not bring itself down for the audience, if that makes any sense. And there are some other shows that some of the producers on the series have worked on before, like a Justice League or a Green Lantern the Animated Series, where they were truly all-ages shows. They were fine for kids to watch. There wasn't anything vulgar in these shows that kids wouldn't understand or would corrupt a child or anything like that. But at the same time, they were sophisticated enough that an adult could watch them. And you're not quite going to get that here, but you're still probably going to enjoy yourself if you are looking for some superhero action and you're, say, my age or older. You're probably still going to enjoy yourself. There was one more nitpick I wanted to talk about, and that's Black Adam himself. So at the beginning of the episode, after Batman and the Wizard Shazam defeat Black Adam, Shazam, he throws Black Adam in a portal, and he says that he threw him to the other side of the universe, and it was going to take him centuries to come back here. And that's kind of similar to how they defeated him in the Superman Black Adam Power of Shazam short that came out on DVD several years ago. But okay, I was thinking, alright, that's how you defeated Black Adam? Sounds good. And then at the end of the episode, he pops up out of the center of the earth, and Superman mentions that the Wizard Shazam threw him into the ancient past, and that's not what happened. And it's almost like they were expecting the people who watched the first 15 minutes of this episode to not watch the last 15 minutes of this episode, which is weird because this entire episode happens in the span of an hour, and if you were presenting these over the span of 4 weeks, that would be one thing, but all of these episodes air back to back, and you have a pretty brutal inconsistency here, and I know it's a nitpick, but it's a pretty big nitpick. I feel like I'm justified in saying that that's something that they should have figured out before they let this go to air. These guys have made some really great shows in the past that wouldn't have had such an inconsistency like this between episodes. They shouldn't have let that get past them here, in my opinion. But overall, I would give this maybe a 7 out of 10. It was better than what I was thinking it would be. I really enjoyed it. I like a lot of the character designs. I like the way they presented most of the characters here. I do wish that it would try to bring itself up a little bit, be a little bit more all ages, be appropriate for children who want to watch superheroes punching each other, but also be sophisticated enough for people who are older and want to see something more than just a slugfest with really corny jokes. Be something like that, kind of like the old Justice League show from when I was in high school, or Green Lantern the Animated Series, something a little bit more recent. Be like those shows, and you can still be a really good show that children will watch, but also you'll have a wider audience, in my opinion. But maybe that's not worked out for them in the past, I don't know. But those are my thoughts on Justice League Action, the 4-part premiere. I don't know when the next episode is going to be premiering in America, but I will try to do a review of that episode whenever it comes out. I am still going to try and keep watching the show, and I'm going to attempt, knock on wood, I'm going to attempt to watch every episode as they air. We'll see how that goes. I may lose track of this series. I don't want to, but we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, those are my thoughts on the first 4 episodes. I hope that you guys like this review, and I hope you guys will check out this cartoon if you are able to. In the meantime, I will see you guys in the future. Have a great day.